this issue again last year, the response we got from those in government, the National Treasury and their bosses, is that they are basing the sale of Safaricom shares in terms of market price. I don't know whether they actually knew what market price is, because by the time they were talking about market price, the sale of Safaricom share at 34 shillings, other transactions were happening off the market, just like Safaricom. Those kind of transactions are called off the market transactions. One is NCBA. Before the announcement of the transaction in NCBA, the price was trading at below 70 shillings. That is the last quarter of last year. But the transaction price of NCBA to Netbank was over 102 shillings per share. And therefore, these things Kenyans know them. So I would request those in government to kindly shelve off those stale narratives to Kenyans. At the same time, we had some EAPL shares being traded by Diageo, their largest shareholder, a 65% owner of the company, selling to Asahi of Japan. At that time, the price of EAPL was around 244 shillings. But the transaction price of the market was 590 Kenya shillings. And you're not talking about history. We are talking about a transaction or transactions, the NCBA one and the EAPL one. We are talking about transactions that are currently happening. And therefore, it was, number one, very incompetent for anyone to come and just dump to Kenyans that they are selling our shares at what they called market price, and especially when the market has been grossly bearish. But now this is the point. You sold a narrative to Kenyans, a self-interested narrative, that the Safaricom share price at 34 shillings was being traded at an unimaginary premium. As late as last Friday, the share of Safaricom in the Nairobi Securities Exchange actually crossed the 34 shillings mark. So we are calling upon those people in government who are auctioning our assets for a song. A time has come when the markets themselves have betrayed you. The markets that you are hedging your narrative on is already past your transaction price. And therefore it is now time that Kenya halts and suspends the sale of Safaricom shares to Vodacom immediately. Because Kenyans are already buying those shares at a cheaper price in the market. And because we've been seeing those in government just dumping and they don't want to take responsibility to give credible feedback to Kenyans in terms of this transaction, I want to tell them this. We are giving you time to respond to issues that Kenyans are raising. And if people who are charged in negotiating for Kenyans will still continue to talk on behalf of the buyers, I am giving them this ultimatum today that I am going to give Kenyans the contacts of the directors of Vodacom so that Kenyans can engage them directly on behalf of their 100 shares per Kenyan, which the Kenyan government is selling. So we are going to give the number of the chairman of Vodacom, Justice Saki Makozoma, and the CEO of Vodacom, who was here actually to sign the deal, Mr. Shamil Aziz Josub. So if the people in government cannot competently address the issues Kenyans are raising, Kenyans have their phones and they have the ability to engage our buyers in a competent discussion so that they stop taking Kenyans for granted and our assets for granted. Kenya Commercial Bank, it is now time also that you be patriotic. KCB Capital, which is handling this transaction, you are aware, as I am aware, that there are people lined up with stock brokerage agencies at KCB Capital. And I want KCB to come in the open and explain to Kenyans why they would want to pay commissions to the same government officials of over 1 billion Kenya shillings in regards to this sale of Safaricom shares. So it is important, everyone who is concerned, let's be patriotic for once. We cannot be self-interested in every single deal that is happening in Kenya. This is the largest in terms of quantum since our independence. And we are going to call for order and accountability and transparency in this transaction until the right thing is done. Because currently, what they are doing is self-interested transactions at the expense of Kenyans. The second thing is Kenya Pipeline. I just have one issue and request to those people who are in government. Anyone who wants to buy Kenya Pipeline shares in government, even if you want to sell the company to yourself, don't hide. Come in the open and buy the shares just like a normal Kenyan. Some of you in government are hiding under entities in regional, what is allocated as the regional category. And you are hiding yourselves in Uganda as investors from Uganda. Good people, you are not going to mess our markets and infiltrate our Nairobi Securities Exchange through these kind of games. If you're buying these shares as a Kenyan, even if you're a leader, do it like a normal Kenyan. Or you explain to Kenyans why you are hiding. And those people who are purportedly buying them as Ugandan investors, know this. After the announcement of the results of Kenya Pipeline, Kenyans will know your faces. Because we know them and we know you. And even if you relocate the geographical location from Uganda to any other regional economy, we still know you, and Kenyans will know you by end of this week after the closure of the Kenya Pipeline IPO. And lastly, there are some few companies I want to request because they are respected, that they do not succumb into political patronage. Vitol, who also owns Vivo, Rubis, Trafigura, and Sahara. The shares you are allocated even before the IPO started. We know them. And you can go ahead if you want to go ahead. But we are not going to allow any Kenyan, again, any leader, to keep on running Kenya recklessly. If you are doing a market-based transaction, do it without having those other hard deals that you are having. And those companies, safeguard your name, keep off any political patronage, keep off from being used from politically based transactions. Because in Kenya, as you know, there is very few places to hide. And you're not going to hide either. So it is important that we do not bring our greed into the market. Let us keep off the market. Do your private transaction outside the market. And especially don't hide. And I'm saying this because you could have noted several transactions in our NSC. And I want to face the cameras and tell Kenyans that some of these transactions have been grade 1 patronage. Our cement companies now in Kenya are purportedly owned by a regional investor. That regional investor is a Kenyan. Let's stop hiding on the faces and the names of regional investors. And in the recent past, we have seen, for example, a company like East African Portland Cement, which is now 68% controlled by the so-called regional investors who are Kenyan. That the National Treasury last week went ahead to give a moratorium of over 1.94 billion Kenya shillings to a private company called East African Portland Cement. That 1.94 billion Kenya shillings is part of the money that is being converted into shares to allocate into political patronage. We cannot continue to play politics And we cannot continue to play grade one patronage using public companies and public assets. If you want to become an investor in any sector in Kenya, just do it in a straight jacket. And we have seen a tendency, and especially in the oil sector, that now patronage is percolating from upstream all down to downstream. When Kenyans hear that Kenya is producing oil from Turkana, we should give Kenyans all the details of including the individuals involved in the drilling of oil in Turkana, so that we open up this space. If there is nothing to hide, say it. But if there is something to hide, it is important then we let all the transactions that touches on the running of our country, Kenya, in the economy, to be market-based, to come out in the open for every other investor to take part. But there is no way we are going to combine power and the economy, strangulate the economy, and we still want our economy to grow. Those two things do not rhyme in the same sentence.